Hong Kong marks one of the lowest daily counts in recent weeks for COVID-19. More details on government package to help companies keep their workers. And as the U.S. marks its highest daily death toll yet, Trump lashes out at the WHO and its China bias. Good evening, everyone. Another 13 COVID-19 cases reported today in Hong Kong, bringing the total to 973. As Sharon Tang reports, health authorities are hoping the lower number of daily infections is a good sign in the fight to contain the coronavirus.
Most of the latest cases again have a recent travel history, including 2 students studying abroad. Among the 3 local infections, a 38-year-old man who earlier visited one of the bars belonging to the band cluster center stage in Wan Chai. The father of the month-and-a-half-old baby boy earlier confirmed with the disease has contracted the virus as well. It's believed he was infected by family members. Meanwhile, the baby is in stable condition now after getting rid of the fever on Monday. Authorities are also tracing the source of an infection of a 43-year-old male patient confirmed with COVID-19 today.
According to what we got so far, there's very little information suggests which part is more high risk than others. He mainly have some food outside in the fast food shop, as well as doing some jogging during nighttime opposite the Shenzhen Center. And otherwise, he mainly stayed at home.
Although there are signs the number of cases is starting to drop, health authorities urged the public to maintain their vigilance.
The number seems to be lower today, but it is very difficult to conclude at this moment because of the long incubation period of the disease, and also we still need to observe the overseas situation and to monitor the number of cases.
Starting today, all travelers arriving from the UK must undergo deep throat saliva tests at the Asia World Expo Testing Centre. Only those who test negative for the virus can leave. According to the Department of Health, the decision was made after 70% of recently confirmed cases travelled from Britain. It added this is in reference to how Hong Kongers returning from Peru were being tested, and those who were found infected were identified promptly. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The second round of the Anti-Epidemic Fund has earmarked around $80 billion to help businesses pay their employees. But while employers are required to maintain headcounts, it doesn't mean they can't lay off workers. Caleb Leung with more.
A day after the government announced a scheme to help employers pay half of workers' salaries, capped at $9,000 per employee, the labor chief elaborated more on the details.
The 2 conditions for the wage subsidy is basically one, that they have to maintain the same headcount. Secondly, all the money that they receive from the wage subsidy should be all given to the staff.
Law also talked about the consequences employers would face if they failed to do so.
So if they have redundancy, which basically means they have a reduction in headcount, then the money will be clawed back, and there will be some penalty, the details to be announced later.
And while the government asked businesses to maintain headcount, it doesn't mean they are not allowed to dismiss employees.
We are not checking on individual employees. We are checking on the headcount. Headcount is just counting the numbers, and that should not be an enormous amount of administration.
Under the scheme, employers will be asked to choose a month between January and April, and the subsidy will be calculated based on the chosen month. They can select a month when businesses were not as badly hit, such as January, if they want more manpower to resume work. Law said the plan could not stop employers from cutting wages, and the government's subsidies may end up being more than half of some employees' salaries. He also noted that the plan could only benefit those who filed their taxes and make MPF contributions. For those who are laid off and unemployed, they should seek comprehensive social security assistance. The government plans to start accepting applications in early June and start giving out the subsidy by the end of that month. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
A day after the chief executive said she and other top officials would take a pay cut, lawmakers now say they will follow suit.
It makes no difference whether you are appointed or elected. The legislature has not been able to hold meetings as usual. We are doing less work as lawmakers as usual. So I think it would be a good gesture to the public to show that we are willing to take a salary cut.
Airport Authority Management is also announcing a voluntary pay cut of 20% for 6 months starting this month. That includes CEO Fred Lam and all 6 executive directors. Overseas now, New York State, the epicenter of America's coronavirus crisis, has set another single-day record of COVID-19 deaths. Officials say 779 people died from the virus yesterday, exceeding the previous day's record. But as the battle rages on, U.S. officials are taking a first small step toward reopening the country. In the U.S. Capitol, new guidelines from the National Disease Watchdog. Essential employees like healthcare and food supply workers who have been exposed to a confirmed or suspected case of the virus can return to work under certain circumstances if they are not experiencing symptoms.
They could go back to work if they do several things, as we say here. Take their temperature before they go to work, wear a face mask at all times, and practice social distancing when they're at work.
The new guidelines also come with strong recommendations for employers. They're being issued as the nation mourns nearly 15,000 deaths from the virus and grapples with a devastated economy from coast to coast. The U.S. president said health officials are seeing signs that an aggressive strategy to slow the spread of what he calls the evil beast is working.
The numbers are changing, and they're changing rapidly, and soon we'll be over that curve, we'll be over the top, and we'll be headed in the right direction. I feel strongly about that.
Trump said that while he knows workers are going stir-crazy at home, he can't predict when the threat from the virus will ease. At some point, he said, social distancing guidelines will disappear altogether. Health experts continue to caution Americans to practice social distancing and to avoid returning to their normal activities.
Don't get another one just in case. Thank you.
Meanwhile, different communities continue to find different ways to cope with COVID. Transit riders in Detroit are being given free surgical masks with every ride. Passengers think it's awesome.
You don't know what you're going to catch when you don't have this mask and this glove.
Riders are asked to be careful and only touch the mask they take, and it's one per passenger while supplies last. The United Nations Secretary General is rallying around the World Health Organization after the U.S. president doubled down on threats to investigate the WHO and its budget.
That the World Health Organization must be supported as it is absolutely critical to the world's efforts to win the war against COVID-19. Once we finally turn the page on this epidemic, there must be a time to look back fully to understand how such a disease emerged and spread its devastation so quickly across the globe. But now is not that time. Now is the time for unity.
He criticized me very strongly when I said that we're going to shut down flights coming in from China, and especially from certain parts of China. And I think they have to get their priorities right. So we're going to do study, investigation, and we're going to make a determination as to what we're doing.
On Tuesday, Trump said the U.S. would put a hold on WHO funding and then walked that back to say we will look at ending funding. The U.S. has contributed nearly 1/5 of the WHO's $4.4 billion budget for the last 2 years. Trump's remarks came as many governments have started to ignore and criticize WHO public policy recommendations like travel restrictions and face masks. Meanwhile, Taiwan strongly condemned accusations from the head of the World Health Organization that it condoned racist attacks on him, which he alleged came from the island. Yesterday, the WHO Director General accused Taiwan's foreign ministry of being linked to a months-long campaign against him during the COVID-19 pandemic. He said he has received death threats and racist abuse. A Taiwan Foreign Ministry spokesperson said the allegations are groundless and seriously misleading. Taiwan's exclusion from the WHO because of objections from China has infuriated the Taipei government. Taiwan says it's been unable to get timely information, and Taiwanese lives have become political pawns. Still to come on tonight's news. Court of Appeal partially overturns lower court verdict on mask ban. More people ordering in because of the pandemic, local green group warns of the impact from all that waste. Welcome back to TVB News. The Court of Appeal has ruled in favor of the government's appeal to uphold its mask ban at unauthorized protests. This partially overturns the High Court's earlier ruling that the ban was unconstitutional. Dong Yao-nie has details.
It appears that the Court of Appeal believes the government's controversial mask ban is constitutional after all, at least partially. Last October, the government imposed a ban on masks at all protests under the Emergency Regulation Ordinance, or ERO. It came at the height of months of social unrest, triggered by the introduction of the extradition bill in June. Lam's use of the ERO was challenged by opposition lawmakers and was ruled unconstitutional by the High Court back in January. But today, the Court of Appeal partially overturned the previous ruling. In the judgment, the three justices presiding over the case wrote that the ERO empowers the chief executive in council to make regulations on any occasion of public danger. They also believed the acts of radical and violent protesters since October had posed a grave and genuine danger to the police and other members of the public. However, the court ruled that the mask ban is only legal when applying to unlawful assemblies and unauthorized assemblies. It would be unconstitutional to be imposed on legal demonstrations or public meetings that are not prohibited by the Commissioner of Police. Former lawmaker Leung Kok-hong said he was disappointed with the result.
The ERO is an aging colonial ordinance, even though maybe the ERO is constitutional. But the definition of public danger is too wide.
Leung Kok-hong says he will appeal the case, but he would first need to seek legal aid. Dong Yao-nie, TVB News.
A local environmental group is estimating that more than 100 million plastic utensils have been used and thrown out every week during the COVID-19 pandemic. As Kana Chu reports, that could put a big strain on the city's waste management system and the environment.
The COVID-19 pandemic has seen lower air pollution levels reported in many parts of the world. But the outbreak is causing other problems for the environment, including an increase in the amount of non-biodegradable waste that is being produced.
We also to encourage them to bring their own containers and cutlery. And even they are asking for the takeaway service, we can encourage them to request not to take any disposable cutlery.
On average, more than 100 million pieces of plastic utensils have been consumed each week during the pandemic, estimated Greeners Action. That, as a study they carried out from April 1st to the 6th, also suggested the number of takeaway meals ordered per week had risen by 74% during the outbreak.
A takeaway meal like this for a family of 4 comes with 26 pieces of single-use plastic tableware. According to Greeners Action, items like styrofoam containers can linger in the environment for about 10,000 years.
With about 88% of respondents willing to bring their own utensils for a cheaper meal, Greeners Action will be working with restaurants on a discount scheme in April and May.
We are hoping we can hold events for 2 weeks. 15 of the restaurants in Yunnan to participate in the program. We are hoping we can spare about 1,000 takeaways at the first stage.
To facilitate waste reduction, the group also urged the government to implement waste charging as soon as possible. Kena Chu, TVB News.
With COVID-19 deaths and new infections starting to level off in European hotspots, some countries are considering whether to ease their lockdown restrictions. However, a picture of the damage to economies is also starting to emerge. Leslie Tang has details.
Pressure has eased on Italy's ICUs, with almost 100 fewer beds occupied over the past 24 hours. Although Italy has the world's highest COVID-19 death toll, the daily death count was also at its lowest number in almost a month. In the next few days, Italy's prime minister is expected to announce how long the country's lockdown will stay in place. Ideas floating around include requiring immunity certificates following antibody blood tests. Letting younger workers return first has also been suggested. But the economic fallout from businesses coming to a standstill has just begun. The World Trade Organization has forecast international trade will fall between 13% to 32% this year as the virus ravages global commerce. It says the drop will be worse than the 2008 global financial crisis.
Keeping markets open will help economies recover more fully, and working together, countries will bounce back more quickly than they would acting alone.
In France, as warmer weather settles in, Paris has banned daytime jogging. The 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. outdoor exercise ban was set after crowds of residents flocked outside to bask in the sunny weather. Just a day earlier, the mayor of Paris insisted people stick to strict lockdown measures implemented across the country. Fiscally, the Bank of France says the country has entered a recession, with the economy estimated to have dropped by 6% compared to the previous quarter. Analysts say the world's third largest economy, Japan, could contract by a record 25% this quarter. Meanwhile, to some positive news in the UK, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is said to be feeling better in intensive care and is sitting up in bed.
Yeah, well done you. Can you hold it up a bit to your left so we can see it?
As a nice surprise, children of National Health Service staff and key workers got a royal virtual visit by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge at their school. Leslie Tang, TVB News.
That is our time for the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.